The other day, Rishi Sunak made an announcement that he was going to tighten up the laws on asylum. And he referred to Germany and to France, and specifically said that Germany had rejected almost 100% of Albanian asylum seekers. Now, first of all, that is probably not correct. And secondly, Sunak used that as an argument to say that he's drawn up an agreement with Edi Rama, great, to return Albanians who cross into Britain illegally immediately back to Albania, which is a safe European country, quote. Well, in principle, that sounds perfectly reasonable, but to return people who have come to Britain and have claimed asylum without processing that asylum application, which is something that Germany, France, and the other European countries he cited routinely go through. They process the applications, even if they then reject the applications. This is very different. What Sunak is recommending, what Sunak is suggesting, is that we return people to Albania without processing their application. That is against international law. So unless we want to redefine international law, which is perfectly reasonable, then we actually need to follow it. Because if we wish to reject international law, then we become a sort of pariah state, a little bit like Russia. A state that cannot be relied upon to do what it has undertaken to do, to keep international law, to keep the agreements, the big international agreements that we have made. This is the Geneva Agreements, particularly the 1951 Refugee Convention. And it's very, very clear. And Britain is the country that defined the idea that somebody has up to 57 days license to linger on their route from one place to another, even if that lingering happens to be in France. We defined that in a court. So if Rishi Sunak and the present government wish to mess around with these laws in order to score political points, they are heading for disaster, and they are wasting a lot of time. The only way to deal with this is an international conference, and that would be fine. Even an agreement between Rishi Sunak and Edi Rama, a long time coming, but it's not, in fact, what Edi Rama was asking for. Edi Rama was asking specifically to have people stationed from Britain in Albania to process applications. Instead, we're going to have people stationed in the Tirana airport, the Mother Teresa airport, which is absurd, because people travelling by air is not the problem. The problem is people travelling through the smuggling channels operated often by Kurdish and Libyan gangs in Turkey and in North Africa, and promoted on TikTok, not a thing I use. And this is the problem. And despite all the sloganizing, despite all the threats of Priti Patel and Suella Braverman, the numbers of migrants coming to this country to claim asylum or simply to dodge the system has almost doubled. So last year, I think we had 25,000 people coming. This year, I think we've already had 45,000. It's absurd. And something needs to be done. And this is something where we can't hide behind Europe, which is what we've done in the past. We've not taken responsibility for our borders. We're not taking control of our borders. We have surrendered control of our borders because we have lost the opportunity that the Dublin regulation the Dublin Convention allowed and afforded. We lost that. And in the silly negotiations, started by May, continued and cemented by Boris, we didn't deal with some sort of revival or some sort of buy-in to that Dublin regulation. We didn't deal with that, so therefore we are suffering the consequences. We're suffering the consequences of a hurried and ill-thought-out negotiation. Not only there, but also in Northern Ireland. That is the problem. And if somebody can tell me why we are suffering all this mess, what advantages Brexit has brought, I would be utterly, utterly delighted. I was the first to say that Europe was badly in need of reform. I will also be one of the first to say that the refugee conventions that we've got are badly in need of redefinition and clarification. But the way Sunak and before him Liz Truss and indeed Boris have gone about this process is madness. They have taken their initiative from one of the most inane and ineffective prime ministers that we have ever had. That's not Liz Truss. It's Mrs. May. Because Mrs. May thought that a wave of a pen, a wave of a magic marker, could change reality. It cannot. It simply changes the grammar in a sentence. And we are faced with, on a daily basis, people who say one thing and intend another because they're playing around with words and they're not taking responsibility for what those words mean. That is our problem, and that is at the heart of our Brexit mess. Our Brexit mess is based on negotiations which were wordplay rather than reality. And we are reaping the whirlwind of that wordplay. And I for one am very sorry. And as for the contact between Eddie Rama and Rishi Sunak, as I say, long overdue and to be celebrated. But listen to what Eddie Rama says. He is very, very clear. And putting people in Tirana airport is just it's nonsensical. Nonsensical.